we haven't had a session in a long time, and I have just a few things that I wanted to talk about, just some noticings, and as I'm, going through this internship with you, and I'm honored to hear other people speak. It's so amazing to me just how common all of these threads are that are running through a lot of parents. The problems that we're having are all very similar. And a lot of them come from the iPad. Who knew? And I was on a trip this past weekend. I was in New York, and people were asking me, oh, what do you do? And I was explaining what I do and explaining the NRF. And, they were like, oh, so it's with kids with, kids with problems. I was like, no, it's for all kids. All kids have behaviors that aren't awesome, right? That need a little help. And they were like, oh, so like you can help with sleep? And I said, oh, for sure. And I said, well, and they gave me they were like, oh, well, our kids always been bad with sleep. And so I wanted to talk to you about, like, when you hear that, oh, our kid's been a bad sleeper since the get-go, and when parents seem to be hesitant to acknowledge that there is some stress outside of, nope, just a bad sleeper, it's just the way he is. So kind of wanted to talk to you about that. But then I asked a few questions, and I said, well, what do you think is stressful? Why they're like, he can't calm down. And I said, oh, okay. And the mom was like, he's just so overscheduled, and he does sports every night, and sometimes he doesn't get home until X, Y, and Z time. And then we give him 10 minutes of iPad time right before bed. And I said, well, you're not going to like what I have to tell you. And as I was talking about it, I was coaching myself too, because I was like, we have implemented some new rules in our house about iPad use, but it is a slippery slope, and it is real easy in the heat of the moment to like not have the fortitude to stick with this rule, because
oh my gosh, yes,
it is everything I know about it. Well, for people who might be viewing this online. So I had gotten, in our family, we had gotten into the habit of allowing my son to wake up and saying it feels horrible, but have free reign of the iPad for like 20 minutes because he gets up so early and we wanted to sleep in more. Well, what that has done has created this addiction that he needs to wake up, and he's got this fervor of, I need to know this. He likes to know the schedule of school and like the scores of the previous night of sports.
Okay.
And so he wakes up with this anxiety, this energy of like, I need to know it now. And so we have implemented, he's usually up at like 6:15, and he doesn't get, the newest thing is he doesn't get the iPad until 7:45, which is when we do family trivia. And then he gets to call our aunt, and we do a FaceTime family trivia all together. And then after that, he kind of like plays around on Spotify and listens to music and checks out the scores. But what I've been noticing is that literally he the first thing he asks me is, Mom, can I use your phone? Mom, can I use your phone? And so I've been putting my phone away, and we spend about 15 minutes together in the morning, first thing, before I do my coffee, before anything. And we're transitioning. So he still wants to know the scores. So like we look on the TV together, and then I'm done. And then he asks his questions. And then we go through all the things that we need to do. But it is so hard. My point is, one, I can see the detriment that the iPad has for him in this like need to have it more and need to find a way to figure out these scores. And like it's almost like an insatiable desire. And I have a kiddo with impulse control and like autism. So it's, it's extra. So,
yeah.
But I just wanted to like validate that it is really hard, once you're in this process of allowing your kids to use the iPad or screen on any level, to shift it. And it takes a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, it takes a lot of work.
And fortitude.
Fortitude. Yeah, it
Mhm.
takes a lot of fortitude because he is not satisfied with you have to wait because it doesn't make sense to him. He's also not because in his mind he's like, well, if I have to wait, why don't I get it now? Which is fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but it's like as we're approaching summer, we have 2 months till summer. I'm going, okay, some of the camps have fallen through. Actually, a lot of the camps have fallen through. I have about a month and a half of camp and a month and a half of no camps. And so I'm thinking, oh gosh, I don't want this kid on the iPad all summer long. And
And what else is there to do? That's always the problem.
what else is there to do? Especially,
Mm-hmm.
so this mom sitting next to me at this dinner, he's like, well, Mark, our kid doesn't like to do anything really except for play sports. And I was like, well, yeah, that's hard. I
Mm-hmm.
have a kid who doesn't like to do anything but really just be with me. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I said I have to co-regulate him almost constantly. I don't know if that's the case with your kid or not. She didn't really know what co-regulation was. But and what I keep hearing in my head is you now saying, give him a job, give him a job. So get him included in the things that I'm doing. And I will stop and do that and include him. And then I get frustrated because at the level of which he does things is so incredibly disruptive.
Give an
And
example.
um like wanting he's so sweet and I'm going to say two things. So he's so sweet and I'm trying while he's curious because he just wants to be with me and helpful. He'll want to like stir the pan while I'm cooking. um and I think I'd say like 85% of the time I feel safe with him not getting burnt, and then there's still that 50%, 15% where I'm like, he doesn't really get it because I've kept him safe. And he's not one of those kids where once he does it, it's done. It's not my reality.
Once he gets burnt, he's gonna keep getting burnt.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, wow, that really hurt. And oh, that's gonna happen again. So like stirring, sometimes he stirs and like food goes everywhere.
Mm.
Or sometimes he stirs when like I'm trying to get something crispy because he likes crispy things. And so then it like ruin is a bad word, but it like disrupts the flow. Or and I'm trying what I am really focusing on in those moments as I start to feel triggered, because I feel it, like I start to
Mhm.
get tense, I start to like my jaw gets
Yes, I know this feeling very clearly. Yes.
I am focusing on being silly. And I say, oh my God, you made such a mess. Instead of, what are you doing? Because
Good for you. Wow, that's a huge shift.
I'm really trying, because it's
Uh,
just sinking in with me so hard that like what, because I have a puppy too, and like she is the most infuriating creature on earth right now.
mm,
And I'm yelling, like I'm my mornings, I'm yelling, and I'm like, she's gonna be scared of I'm
mm.
scared of me. So so I'm like learning it with my puppy, I'm seeing it with my son, and I'm like also just trying to have a little grace with myself that these rigid things, and I don't really consider myself a very rigid person, but these beliefs, these procedural beliefs, these memories, these automatic things that I have that I just like jump to, I'm so reactionary.
The stress makes us rigid.
Yeah.
You're not a rigid person. You're a stable, flexible person. And the stress pushes us into from stability to rigidity. And the stress pushes us from flexibility to chaos.
Yeah.
So you're not that. That's
No,
stress.
yeah.
Can you tell me more? You get silly, you made, and then what happens? You get a shift in your body. What happens with
Well,
your
but then I
action?
still have to, so I have a kiddo with special
Mhm.
needs. So that doesn't necessarily land. And so then I have to sometimes 5, 6, 7 times legitimately remove him from the situation so I can
Okay. Yeah.
clean it or
So
deal with it or
can
feed
we
it.
can we imagine that you say, "Oh my gosh, what a mess you made," and then you stop and hold your focus. Okay. What does he do when you say that and you look at him and you're quiet and you don't continue on with the interaction?
You know what he actually did this last time is he goes, "Oh, sorry, mommy, I'll clean it up."
Okay,
And
then
then,
what happens?
well, then he grabbed a dish towel and he cleaned it up,
Okay.
but it's not clean.
Right.
So, but that was helpful and that was
Mhm.
kind. And what did I do after that? I don't know. I probably then said, "Okay, I need you out of the kitchen."
Yeah. So, right. So here's an idea for slowing down the interaction and making it more task oriented, or sorry, more process oriented than task oriented. With kids, we have to stop caring so much about the task, which is really hard, but it's a rewiring. And we have to start focusing our attention on the process.
Mm,
So if we're focusing on the process, he grabs a towel. Do I want to teach the lesson about cleaning right now?
right.
Do I want to slow everything down to that degree? Maybe, maybe not. If you were really radical about this, okay, you just cleaned it. Is there any left?
Mm,
Part of the
mhm,
cleaning is doing the look.
mm,
What I would say to my son, let's do the look now. The look is showing me, and then you're like, I spy
mm.
with my little eye,
That
you know,
is
let's look at this. And then, oh, I see. Ah, who can see it first? You know, that's a lot of slowing down. And honey, I know you run red. I know your nervous system runs and fight. Most moms who are on top of things can only do it in red.
Yeah, that's horrible.
No, but it's so our society.
Yeah,
If you're constantly being on top of things, your nervous system runs fight, flight.
all the time.
So
Ugh,
this is the enemy of fight, flight.
the dead end.
The enemy, yes, it's like, don't stop, don't slow down. Fight, flight requires speed, efficiency, and task orientation. Your nervous system is
Mm.
wired for that.
And what's so funny is I spend thousands of dollars a year on yoga retreats to like
Exactly.
stop that.
Exactly. So here's your yoga,
Yeah,
which means practice, right?
yeah.
Here's your yoga is breathe. He just cleaned up a mess. Let's breathe. Let's get present. Let's slow everything down. That is the idea of that is the enemy of fight flight, but the practice of that is the antidote to fight flight. When you say to yourself, slow down, breathe, your fight flight cannot remain active.
It
It
can't.
has
Two
to,
things can't operate at the same time.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I tattooed it on my arm.
What does it say?
It says, "Be tender, move slowly, and offer thanks."
Hmm.
And yet,
Well, that's why it's tattooed onto your arm because
because
it's a life
I
lesson,
can't remember to do it in the moment. So
lifelong
hard.
lesson.
So hard.
Yeah, that's beautiful that you have that tattooed on your arm. That's actually really helpful.
Yeah, and I'm
So,
sure I'll get more.
but it's like the rewiring of our brains is the hardest part of this whole process of moving towards joy.
Yeah.
It's simply the hardest part. Why? Because brains don't want to be rewired.
Mm.
They don't want it. It's too much energy. It's too hard. And our brains are wired for the path of least resistance.
Which is what? Just survival.
Survival. Not, and we are actually wired for joy as well, but we are wired for joy when there's not a lot of stress. Stress orients us towards survival.
Right. So it's another way to look at what we're doing here is finding the joy in stress.
Is to answer stress with joy.
Yeah. Answer.
Yeah. Answer
Yeah.
the stress with joy, with slowing down, because you've got to counter your fight flight. Sitting down on the floor would counter your fight flight. Like your body has to do something to cue your brain that, oh, this isn't fight flight time. And sitting down could be a good cue
Mm-hmm.
on
Like
this
getting out
floor.
of the dishes, getting out of the cooking. It's like you
Yeah.
stop
Oh,
everything.
oh, what a mess. Turn off stove.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good cue. Sit down. Look at your son quizzically.
Meet with.
Focus the next 5 minutes on cleaning.
Okay.
And then it's time to turn the stove back on. But I don't want to turn the stove back on because I don't want to clean up another mess. What are we going to do? Present the problem, not the solution. The
Which is
solution
always
is
hard
get
to
this
do.
kid out of here.
Yeah. Right.
The
Someone help
problem is
this kid.
that was so messy. When you stirred that pot, it was so messy. And we cleaned up this big mess. And thank you so much for cleaning that up. There's your gratitude on your arm. That was so nice of you to help me. And that was so nice of you, and thanks for letting me help you. That's even better, right?
Yeah.
And you're still sitting on the floor because you need a plan now for how he's going to help without making another mess.
Right.
What can we do? Are we going to say stir slower? No. Eh.
We're
We're
not
not going
scared
to say slow.
anymore.
That is the solution. What can we do to get this cooking done so we can eat our delicious meal and not spend the whole time cleaning up? Sitting, waiting, allowing that little developing brain to process the memory of what happened. That's a job in itself. And then so to gain some uh hindsight, then to process the foresight of how we want it to be,
Right.
to come to an insight
Huh.
about what we can do to get there.
Mm.
That is executive system development at its finest.
Right. Holding the two things to come up with the one. Yeah.
That is
I don't
the
even know that I can do that.
second to the top functional capacity of the executive system.
Right.
Like that's a
Okay.
very complex and important skill that you're nurturing by sitting on the floor and letting your fight flight fall away
Mm.
and not solving the problem.
Right.
All you're battling with is your nervous system. You're not battling with getting dinner done on time.
No.
You're not battling your child, his behavior or his disability. All you're battling with here is your nervous system. If you can do that everything else falls into place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a decision that you're making with your body budget. You're saying, yes, I'm willing to spend this time and energy on this moment. I'm willing to invest my budget on this moment, even though my nervous system has a default of not wanting to invest in this moment.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like replaying so many interactions with him that often end up with his frustration and then him wanting to hit me or like swat at me or
Mm,
something like that.
mm.
And if I could catch myself before I react um off the cuff, you know, so many of those, most if not most of those interactions would be vastly different.
Mhm.
Yeah. He's gonna be like, "Mom, you're sitting on the floor again."
Because we have such a big problem that we need to think about. My body has to rest so my mind can work harder.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I'm gonna be on the floor a lot if I
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're so right. Like, even I mean, it's so I want other parents to know, like, this is so hard, and yet it's so simple, but it is really hard in the moment to learn a new thing and stop yourself even when you're studying it. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally.
The other thing I made a conscious effort of this week. uh, So I went out of town on Friday, and he was feeling very anxious about it, and it was just an underlying current of all of our interactions. And he was very needy. He was very whiny, like all these things, and I was aware of it. And so I made a decision. I said, I'm going to meet him developmentally. I'm going to make an assumption that he's like a 2-year old right now, or even younger. And so every
Nice.
yeah, so I just babied him.
Exciting.
I just babied him. I just held him and I said, "Oh, my little baby. Oh, let's go brush your teeth. Oh, little baby. Oh, let's get out of the bathtub." And like he just his eyes. And then he said, "Mommy." And I said, "I know. Just come here. Just my little baby."
Oh, I love it.
And it made a huge difference. I'm getting chills because it filled him up. He didn't have to be 9. He didn't have to meet my unreal expectations. It was like, bedtime was like a breeze. It was
Mm,
so easy. He's like, "Mommy, are we gonna read?" Yeah, we're gonna read. Like, I just talked to him like he was an infant, and he lapped it up. Like, it was real good.
that is the secret to good, sturdy development is meet them right where they are. And everybody's afraid to do it because they're afraid that their kid's going to go backwards. And yes, they're going to go actually to where they are
Really.
from a sturdy, stable place in their nervous system so that they can then build from there rather than building from all these holes.
Right. Yeah,
Beautiful.
I know. It felt really good. And then just to see the lightness, like it was almost, and he's a really happy kid, but he was like, "Oh, mom's letting me feel the way I feel." It was really good. It was, yeah,
Amazing.
it was really good. Um, yeah, so those are the things that I wanted to share um right now.
Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. I have goals. I really want him to be on the iPad less. And like I said, but I also use it as a tool to give me some space. So it's a double-edged sword. His birthday is coming up, and he'll be getting gifts and things like that.
Mm.
So hopefully there will be things that will capture his attention. um, a bit more than the iPad, but it's hard to compete with.
Yes,
So,
it is. Yes,
yeah.
it is. And all those feelings around the iPad and all that addiction is actually a catharsis. It's a indication of a need for a catharsis.
Mm.
So
Right.
when Yeah,
Yeah,
so when we see addiction and we see that dysregulated behavior around iPads, it's like, "Oh, this is an opportunity.
yeah,
This is my chance to really help him face what's going on
yeah,
so we can actually transcend it and
yeah,
be at work, functioning at a higher level."
yeah. And usually, my experience is he wants the iPad when I can't give him my undivided attention.
Well, he's also you're a crutch for
Yeah,
him because
yeah,
you help him regulate his nervous system. His
yeah,
nervous system is kind of a wreck,
totally.
you know? He's dealing with some real organic struggles. And you know what your next step is here is to
No.
help him learn how to tolerate the
Mm,
chaos that he experiences and normalize it for himself and be able to, well, yeah, I said it, tolerate it and
yeah.
and like function with that in the background. It's like people who have tendinitis, that can drive a person crazy. Once you really habituate to that sound and accept it and just, preferably heal it, right? But if we can't heal it, how do we cope with it?
Well, so I mean, that is deep work that I would love to talk to you about,
Yeah.
it's like how to help him tolerate his internal organic dysregulated nervous system.
Yep. And it's a lot of the co-regulation, not solving.
Mm,
It's a lot of times what we're doing when we're co-regulating with our kids is trying to keep things going, trying to keep them entertained, trying to keep them happy, avoiding disappointment. And what he needs is a co-regulator who slows down and has him experience what's happening in his body in relationship with you, not distracting what's happening in his body in relationship to you.
well, and how do you so slowing down, um,
And having more silences. So you're sitting there. He wants the iPad because he wants to avoid the feelings he's having. There's a lot of resistance to what's happening in his body. And so when you're sitting there with him around this iPad conversation and he's saying, I want it, you're saying, oh, hmm,
and then he hits me right now.
okay. So then you're ready for that with
Yeah,
open hands. So
yeah,
you say, oh, you might even say, I'll bet you want to hit me.
yeah.
And you get ready and you block. And you do not say, and this isn't for you, this is for our listeners. You do not say, you may not hit me. Instead, you say, mm, and your body is saying, do not hit me because your voice is, and any words that go against what he wants, that's just going to, it's going to trigger him even more. It's going to make him, it's going to escalate him. So we're
Right.
not going to talk. We're just going, ooh, ooh, ooh. You could even say, go ahead and hit me. I'm ready. I'm
Mm,
ready to protect myself. Go for it. I'm going to I'm going to I'm going to block everything I'm going to block everything. And he's going to try and get around your hands and you're going to have good reflexes and sometimes he's going to get it and you can say, "Ah, you got me. Oh, oh, I'm going to try again."
right.
And then you can also though invite the child into a wrestling where you're only pushing and pulling. And if he already has been doing that with you and you've been pushing and pulling and wrestling like every single day after school, for example, to get those yayas out, then when he's mad, he wants to hit you. Oh, oh, and that can turn into joy and it can turn into a wrestling match so that he falls into the rules of wrestling, which is no punching.
Yeah, and for him, he hasn't shown a propensity towards wrestling, but
Mm,
he does love the proprioception of like the hugs, and so like the
mm,
silly and the tickles at that point. So like,
okay. Would he, if he wants to punch you,
well, it's not really he wants to punch me, it's like a swat. It's a he hasn't
I wonder if that's what, because
never punched,
the
but
wrestling is actually an important developmental activity. Like that's something that develops his development. So if he swats you, it would be great to like push,
push into
like
the
block
swat.
and push so that he can get into pushing you.
Okay.
And if he does end up getting mad and punching, would he do that? Or would he just do more swatting? Okay.
Swatting.
Try to try to blend that into more pushing and pulling so that you can woo him into wrestling, because wrestling is an important developmental.
Yeah, and he's never really done that, honestly, because he doesn't have siblings, and
Yeah.
he's probably physically at the point where he's more sturdy, he had such
Mhm.
low muscle tone that I
Mhm,
was
mhm.
always like,
Good. So this is a great time to introduce it.
yeah,
And just know moms don't tend to like to do that because we don't have that reaction to oxytocin like men do. Men have the reaction up to oxytocin of being playful. Women have the reaction to oxytocin to be nurturing. So if you start, get into this, you're gonna have those feel good hormones of connection. It's not your go-to to be wrestling. So you just sort of
oh, yeah,
overcome that biological limitation that we have and be playful
yeah,
anyway.
yeah. No, that's great because I don't know if he could. I oftentimes ask him like when he's really dysregulated, like positive red. I oftentimes ask him like what he's feeling, and he can't verbalize it.
Mhm.
He can't. So
Sure.
So then I'm like in my head, how am I going to help him deal with this if he can't tell me what what he's feeling, but we'll
Yeah,
figure
and
it
that's totally normal. Our language centers shrink when we are dysregulated. So it's particularly difficult to talk about feelings because that's a pretty high
like
level
little. Sure,
linguistic
sure.
skill. So,
Well, I don't do it in
I
the moment. I don't do it
what's
in the
that?
moment.
Oh, and you do it.
I do it afterwards. Like I'll be like, that was a really silly experience. What was that like for you?
Oh.
And I just don't know that he has the language ability at
Mhm.
this point to be able to really recollect.
Well, you might give him those words.
Yeah.
Was that frustrating? Was that, that's how he learns it, is being in the moment, having you give him those words, articulate things for him, and then over time, he'll start to be able to do that too.
Yeah, because his go-to in explaining all of his feelings right now, when he's frustrated or mad, it's changed from it was always "I'm mad" to now "I'm feeling you're making me feel left out." That's it.
Oh.
But that's not the feeling. It's
Mhm,
probably like sometimes like last night it was he was feeling accused of something that he didn't know. And once we figured out that he wasn't being accused, he was like,
mhm.
"Oh yeah, okay." But anyway, he said, "You're making me feel left out."
That's a very still high level in terms of the brain
Yeah,
skill to be able to name feelings and even understand what we're feeling.
yeah,
So it's wonderful that you are giving him the opportunity to do that with you. And I would just add, tell him what you think, and he
yeah,
can correct you if you're wrong. But
yeah,
feed those to him.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, so that's what those are my takeaways. Just some small work. I'm gonna try to slow down more and really I in my you're right, in my red and in my stress, I am so fixated on solving the problem.
Yeah, that's what red zone is for.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I really need to not do that, which is really tough.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and just remaining silly with him, and then yeah, this work around the iPad, that I haven't actually engaged with him in the, oh, I know you want to hit me. I know what's
Mhm.
coming next. He's going to be very disarmed with that. He'll be like, yeah. So, and then most likely he'll stop doing it. So there we go. And then,
And if you are sitting there focused on him and caring about what he's thinking, he's less likely to want to hit you. At first, he'll want to hit you because he's not getting his way.
yeah,
But when a child is joined in their problem,
right.
the impulse is usually, once he understands, then the impulse wouldn't be to hit. It would be like, yeah,
So
this is hard. What are we going to do?
what are we going to do next? Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Like, how am I going to get through the most boring 30 minutes of my life while you make my lunch?
Yeah. And
You're going
how,
to make your lunch. Yeah, yeah,
and maybe it'll be less boring if you help.
yeah.
And then that's going to be another 2 hours instead of half an hour.
Now we're up at 4 a.m. No,
Mhm.
no,
Exactly.
he did make his own lunch the other day, which was amazing. It was
Whoa.
not balanced in any way, and I didn't care, and he was so proud of himself. But um, yeah, so
Adorable.
yeah, it is. I'm gonna put a. I've got these post-it notes. I'm gonna put a post-it note on the fridge, and it's gonna say, "Ask for Ari's help."
Wow.
So I'm gonna make him help me.
So cool.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.